Echoes from the Sands of Time. In the hot desert, under a very bright sun, a man named Karim worked hard. His hands, tough and covered in dust, gently moved through the very old sand, finding objects that were talked about in old stories. The place where they were digging, filled with scientists and workers, promised to find new things, but did not pay much money. Karim, whose eyes looked tired and whose boots were old, worked non-stop for 6 long days every week. He was surrounded by dusty wind and thoughts of a better life. The money he made was so little that it was barely enough to take care of him and his sick mother, always reminding him of his struggles with not having enough money. Then, one day, when the sun was setting and making long shadows on the endless hills of sand, Karim's tool hit something hard. His heart beat fast as he dug up some clay tablets that had writing on them from the very old city of Babylon. Dr. Lena, a famous scientist, worked hard to understand the writing on the tablets. She uncovered a story as valuable as gold itself. It was about a person from Babylon who was poor and stuck in poverty, finding the secret ways to become free and rich. Start thy purse to fattening. Karim, looking up at the big night sky, was deep in thought. Dr. Lena, the main researcher and his boss, liked how hardworking and careful he was at the digging site. One night, she let him read the new translations from the old tablets, which was a special treat not given to many. Reading the words quietly, Karim felt a big struggle inside him, a struggle between what he needed right now and the smart advice from old Babylonian stories. The tip to start thy purse to fattening felt like a far-off dream to a man who needed things right away. He always spent his money as soon as he got it, buying essential things like bread, fruit, and medicine for his mother. His stomach often felt empty, and his thin clothes showed he lived a life of need. Even when he was hungry and felt the cold wind through his worn-out clothes, Karim seriously considered the ancient advice. His eyes, dimly lit by a small flame, showed a strong choice made from his hardships and thoughts about what was to come. Should he always be poor, unlike the Babylonian in the story who got out of poverty? Or could he change what was going to happen by saving a little money, even though it would make life harder for now? Saving a little bit of his money, a piece of advice from the old tablets, meant not having some things. He dreamed of satisfying food and better clothes to block the cold and wind. The battle inside him was intense. The comfort of enjoying those things now pulled him in, offering a break from today's issues, but not guaranteeing anything for future days. Karim's hands clenched, and he closed his eyes, making a promise to himself. The money, now kept safe, was placed in a small bag, away from the urge to spend it. Karim chose a different way than most people in his situation, sacrificing something now for a better future. Every next day was a battle. His stomach screamed for food, and his body, beaten by the harsh desert winds, demanded better shielding. But with each coin he saved, Karim felt a tiny bit of power lighting up the darkness of his previous hopelessness. He wasn't just letting life happen to him anymore. He was altering his destiny, using the wisdom from the tablets and his willpower to create a pathway to a future where he had more control. In this small act of saving and resisting spending, Karim discovered new strength. It wasn't just in the money he saved, but in the decision to change his life that Karim found the first tastes of freedom from constant need and desire. Control thy expenditures. Next, Kareem decided to follow another advice from the tablets. Control thy expenditures. He made a budget, figuring out what things he really needed and what things he wanted, making sure he only spent what he could afford. This was really hard for him. Before, even though he didn't have much, he'd occasionally buy a piece of fresh bread or nicer clothes, just to make life a bit better. But now, he decided to cut back even more, saving every penny he could. Kareem missed the taste of good food and wearing nice clothes. Nights were especially tough when he was alone with his thoughts, thinking about all the things he gave up. His meals became even simpler and blander, saving every bit of money where he could. But despite how hard it was, Kareem found a kind of freedom in it. Every coin he saved, every time he didn't give in and buy something he wanted, he felt like he was stepping a bit further away from his poor life. Even though it was a hard life of not having much and missing things he liked, it was also a path that he hoped would lead him to a better future. So, Kareem stuck to it, keeping to his budget through thin meals and days in old clothes. A little light in the dark, guiding him toward hopefully having enough money to live a bit easier one day. Make thy gold multiply. After a few months, Kareem looked at the small pile of coins he had saved, remembering the next advice from the ancient words. Make thy gold multiply. This meant he needed to find a way to make his saved money grow bigger. Investing seemed like a really big and scary task because he didn't know much about it, but he knew he had to start somewhere. He decided to begin with something simple. He took his saved coins and put them into a local lending pool. A lending pool is like a group where everyone's money is put together, and then it's lent out to others who need a loan. When people pay back their loans with a bit extra, that little bit extra is shared with everyone who put their money in the pool. Doing this was not without worry. Kareem was scared. What if he lost all his hard-saved money? What if the lending pool didn't work out? He had so many worries, but he also knew that if he kept his money without using it to grow, it would stay the same small pile forever. So, with a brave step, he put his money into the lending pool. And after a while, something amazing happened. His money started to grow, little by little, because of the interest from the loans. It wasn't a lot, and it wasn't fast, but it was growing. His small pile of coins became a slightly bigger pile of coins. Kareem was happy and a little bit proud, too. He was not only saving his money, but he was also growing it, just like the ancient advice had said to do. This showed him that even with a little bit, and even with things being scary and unsure, he could make smart choices to slowly change his life and make his future brighter. And all of it started with that small pile of coins and a brave decision to try something new. Guard thy treasures from loss. As time went on, things didn't always stay the same. The seasons changed, and Kareem found himself facing new problems, especially with money. He remembered another piece of advice from the ancient stories. Guard thy treasures from loss. This meant he had to be really careful with the money he was trying to grow, making sure not to lose it by making bad decisions. Life threw its challenges at Kareem, with expenses like unexpected sickness or bad weather damaging his humble home, trying to wash away the little financial stability he was slowly building. And sometimes people came to him, knowing he had a small pile of growing money, and offered him big chances to make even more. They They promised him that if he invested his money in their ideas or business, he'd get back a lot more. Mountains of gold, they said, with glittering eyes and convincing words. It was really tempting for Kareem. Imagine turning his little pile of coins into a big mountain of wealth without having to wait so long. But Kareem remembered the ancient advice and thought really hard about it. If something sounds too good to be true, maybe it is. He didn't want to risk losing all the money he had worked so hard to save and grow by falling for a promise that might turn out to be empty. So, Kareem was careful. Instead of jumping into big, risky promises, he kept his money where he knew it was safe and would grow, even if it was slowly. He made sure to understand where his money was going and that it was a smart choice. He didn't let fancy words or big promises make him forget the important advice to guard his treasure. Sometimes his heart wavered, especially when life got really hard. And those big, quick promises looked really nice. But he would gently rub the coins between his fingers, reminding himself of all the sacrifices and hard choices he made to collect them. And so, Kareem weathered the storms and tempting offers, his pile of coins slowly growing, a testament to his smart choices and steady patience. His life was still tough, but with each passing season, his careful guarding and wise decisions with his money brought him a tiny step closer to a future where things might be a bit easier. He understood that the path to that future was not through quick, risky ways, but through being steady, smart, and always remembering the wisdom in guarding his treasures carefully. Make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Kareem, living within the simple and humble walls of his small home, took to heart another golden piece of advice. Make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. This meant that he should find ways to make his home, as modest as it was, help him earn money. Kareem looked around his tiny place, and his eyes landed on a small patch of earth, barren and untended. An idea sparked in his mind. Even with limited space and resources, he could bring life and abundance to this little piece of land. He decided to start a garden, even if it was a really tiny one. With seeds saved from the fruits and vegetables he bought, and a few tools borrowed from a neighbor, Kareem began to cultivate the land. It was hard work. His back ached, and his hands were blistered, but he didn't mind. He was turning his small home into something that could help him make money, just like the ancient advice had suggested. Kareem planted vegetables, fruits, and herbs, and as they grew, not only did they provide food for him, reducing his own expenses, but they also brought vibrant greenery into his little dwelling, a refreshing sight that uplifted his spirit. When the plants bore their fruits, vegetables, and herbs, he found that there was more than enough for himself. So, he began to sell the surplus to his neighbors at a fair, affordable price. The fresh produce from Kareem's garden was a hit. People loved buying things that were grown right there in their neighborhood, and they were happy to pay him for the hard work he put into growing them. His neighbors began to look forward to what Kareem's garden would bring. Juicy tomatoes, fragrant herbs, crisp beans, and sometimes, when the season was right, sweet fruits that were a rare treat. Kareem felt a warm glow in his heart every time a neighbor thanked him for the delicious food, and he was equally grateful for the coins they handed him in return. Not only was his garden bringing in a bit of extra money, but it also turned his home into a little community spot where neighbors would stop by for a chat and a purchase. The exchange was not just in goods and coins, but also in camaraderie and shared stories among the green vines of his thriving garden. In the simplicity of his dwelling, Karim found a way to weave together threads of community, sustenance, and commerce, adhering faithfully to the ancient advice. His home, once just a shelter, became a source of income, friendship, and fresh food, turning the wisdom of "make of thy dwelling a profitable investment" into a living, breathing reality. And as he nurtured the plants in his garden, he also nurtured his dreams and the slow, steady growth of his savings, proving that even the modest, humble spaces can yield rich, plentiful bounties when tended with care and ingenuity. Ensure a future income. The words "ensure a future income" echoed in Karim's mind, vibrating with a profundity that reached into his very core. It wasn't just about having money now, but also making sure he would have money in the future, especially when he was too old and weary to work the long, grueling hours under the scorching desert sun. Karim, with his tanned and weathered skin, knew the physical toll the hard labor was taking on him. His back ached. His hands were perpetually stained with the dirt from the earth, and his face was carved with lines from the relentless sun and wind. How much longer could he continue like this? He pondered, gazing upon his reflection in a small, battered mirror. The notion of ensuring a future income meant crafting a detailed and thoughtful plan. He began to meticulously allocate a section of his earnings, no matter how small, ensuring that every bit of income was not just spent or saved, but also invested in something that would continue to provide for him down the line. It was a challenge to decipher which ventures were worth exploring. Karim, though not educated in the traditional sense, was wise and observant. He paid attention to the buzzing marketplace, the trades and businesses that seemed to flourish, and those that languished in slow decay. He noticed a small, family-run business that made beautiful, hand-woven baskets, which were popular among the locals, and even attracted the attention of traders from afar. The family was known to be honest and hardworking, but lacked the means to expand their operations and meet the growing demand for their craft. Karim saw an opportunity. He approached the family with an offer to invest in their business, providing them with the capital needed to buy more materials and possibly hire more hands. In return, he would receive a small, steady share of the profits, ensuring a continuous stream of income. The negotiations were friendly yet cautious, as both parties navigated the terrain of trust and collaboration. Ultimately, they struck a deal, handshakes sealing their partnership under the bright azure sky. The investment was fruitful. The basket-weaving business blossomed, and as promised, a steady stream of income began to trickle into Karim's purse, even during times when he wasn't actively working. His foresight had allowed him to plant seeds that would grow and nourish him in the future. Karim didn't stop there. He continued to scout for other prudent investments, always maintaining a balance between caution and risk, ensuring that his future was paved with multiple streams of income that could sustain him when the sands of time slowed his steps and weakened his body. He never forgot the powerful words that guided his path. Ensure a future income. Karim, through his thoughtful strategies, not only managed to uplift his present, but also constructed a solid financial bridge to his future, demonstrating that careful planning and wise investing are keystones in the pathway out of poverty and into the realms of sustainable prosperity. And so, amidst the sparse and arid desert, Karim found a way to cultivate a lush oasis of security and abundance, ensuring that his future was shielded from the scorching uncertainties of poverty and want. Increase thy ability to earn. Karim devoted considerable thought to the ancient wisdom of increase thy ability to earn. He harbored a strong desire for greater financial security, not just for the present moment, but for the entirety of his future. Recognizing that learning was the key to earning, he committed himself to a regimen of nightly study, even after enduring long days at work, illuminated by the radiant moon. In his possession, Karim held a collection of aged scrolls, which he meticulously perused. These scrolls contained valuable insights into archaic trade routes, historical market interactions, and negotiations, as well as strategies for prudent buying and selling. Karim's pursuit of knowledge went beyond mere reading. During daylight hours on Sundays, he could be found traversing bustling markets, attentively observing and eavesdropping on the astute merchants. Karim harbored no reluctance to inquire further. Engaging in conversations with the merchants, he probed about their merchandise's origins, pricing methodologies, and decision-making processes. Many merchants warmed to Karim, readily sharing their tales and trade secrets, recounting their journeys, their wares, and even their past blunders. Karim absorbed these lessons, incorporating them into his own small business. His grasp of the art of buying and selling improved markedly, as did his ability to communicate with customers and negotiate favorable deals. He acquired the wisdom to discern the optimal times for selling and the wisdom of patience in certain situations. His intellect evolved into an indispensable tool, on par with his physical abilities, aiding him in the pursuit of wealth. Karim's relentless pursuit of knowledge translated into increased earnings, a product not just of hard work, but of shrewd tactics and strategic thinking. Karim, a man previously entrenched in laborious excavation work, was gradually reshaping his life. This transformation did not hinge on stumbling upon a hidden treasure, but rather on his daily commitment to becoming wiser. He understood that expanding his knowledge base could significantly bolster his financial prospects. Step by step, Karim transitioned from a laborer to a savvy trader and investor, harnessing his newfound wisdom to safeguard and enhance his future. This transformation exemplified the profound impact that continuous learning can have in ensuring financial security, not only for today, but also for tomorrow and the days to come. Karim found something more valuable than gold while walking among the whispering palm trees and the endless sands of the desert. He discovered wisdom in old words that had lasted through many, many years. Once, he only knew a life of hard work, digging and searching in the hot, sun-soaked desert. But now, Karim's life was changing, turning into a story about being smart with money, using advice that was as old as the ancient sands beneath his feet. When he looked out across the wide, open desert, his eyes saw more than just the sand and sky. He saw a future full of different chances and new adventures. His hands, which used to only dig in the dirt, were now also used for planting seeds in his own little garden and carefully saving and spending his money. Karim did more than just work hard. He worked smart. He remembered the ancient advice from the Babylonians and used it to make little investments, always thinking carefully about where to put his money. In the cool of the evening, with the sun setting and making long shadows on the sand, Karim would sit and think about how much had changed. He could almost hear the sounds of the ancient Babylonian markets, full of people talking, laughing, and trading. He felt thankful for finding the old words and wisdom that had helped him change his life in such amazing ways. Karim's life was not only about old things buried in the sand anymore. It was also a new story about using old wisdom to find a secure future. His story became a quiet, strong message, passing through time and speaking about how old wisdom can change lives, even in the vast, never-ending desert. So, Karim's story became part of a bigger story, a story about the power of knowledge and wisdom to change lives, no matter how much time has passed.